meat. We have to go and get it shipped in. Randall's at that time had some frozen meat, but there was not a lot of choice, and for sure not a place where you could really sit and eat anywhere. He happened to be moved over to, he had some experience of a deli. He happened to be hired by H-E-B, and H-E-B here was looking for a unique opportunity, a new kitchen. So he approached me and said, well, maybe we could do something. So I said, well, kosher is a difficult situation. We have to work hard at it. And if you're ready, we're going to go head on, butt on.
And so, he was enthusiastic right away.
Oh yeah, he
didn't care.
He was running for it. He was, making sure it was happening. So we sat down. We spoke about the hardships. What's going to happen about a kosher store now? The basics of kosher is that, first of all, meat and milk is separate. Meat has to be the kosher type of animals, so we don't eat pork, we don't eat animals that don't have, all the animals that we eat have split hooves and chew their cud. That's animals. Fish have to have scales and fins. But this is the kosher type of animals that we have, and bird is basically birds that don't prey. They're fowl that don't prey on other birds. And there's a lot of specifics about it, and the Torah goes into the specifics. So these are kosher animals, and then you have to slaughter it kosher. So you have to have a shochet, like a rabbi who knows all the laws of how to slaughter. It has to be a knife that doesn't have any nicks in it, and it's very painless. But basically it's Torah laws how to slaughter the animal. Then you have to soak in salt to take out the blood. We're forbidden to eat blood of animals, and then different parts that we don't eat from the animal. So there's so much details on to get a piece of meat, and then that piece of meat has to be guarded basically or sealed till you get it to your house, because who knows if anyone changed it out and so on. So there's so many details that we have to figure out. So for as far as a kosher store.
So one second, let me just interrupt. It was obvious that H-E-B wasn't going to be able to open up a kosher line within their butchery, within their packing plants.
Correct. You would need to have a unique butchering situation. So you need to find where you could get that meat,
right?
And then also while when they have it in the store, there has to be someone constantly there, just like I said, that has to be sealed. We can't have a kosher piece of meat sitting out there and a religious person, a person who's reliable by Jewish law, to be able to be there and make sure that it's this meat that's coming from the kosher source.
Mashgiach.
So we need a mashgiach.
Yeah.
Mashgiach means that it has to be, whenever it's unsealed, there has to be a mashgiach. So there has to be someone there. So going back to H-E-B, so we would have to figure out how to get the meat, and we would have to hire someone who would work there, unless you want to have someone you're paying just to sit and watch, that would have to be in the store, and whenever there's meat open, not sealed.
Okay.
And H-E-B is very picky about their meat. They don't just buy meat,
right,
from anyone. So he made a meeting with them and had 35 executives, and he basically asked him for a budget for, I think, about $500,000 at that time.
Wow.
To renovate the place, and to make this happen, you have to to go to places to interview. And he thought it's going to take a few times that he would have to convince them. So he right away sits down and says, "Okay, how many of you eat out every week? Everyone eats out. How many of you get fresh meat? Not everyone. I mean, those who want meat,
Right.
and then he said, well, look, there's a whole population here that's in Austin, and especially that time, there was a big hype that there's going to be,
I remember.
IBM was closing in Boca, and there's going to be hundreds of Jewish kosher customers coming to town. So he said, this is your opportunity. That's when JCC opened up at that time.
They thought that we're going to become the next Miami.
Would be the next Miami, exactly. That didn't happen, but HEB decided, yes, let's do it. And so we sat down and we had meetings, me and Tracy, and basically we went on HEB's private jet, and we flew to another city to see how they prepare kosher. They have a kosher store, which was a little similar, but it didn't have a deli. They just had a mashgiach come in, and he had his locked up room where he could cut up his meat. And then we went to the factory in Iowa. We went to a place that may sell meat. And we had there a whole day that we watched. We went around the tours. We watched, for soaking and salting. I learned a thing, that how these companies have huge machines that have like a conveyor belt where they put the salt, they put the pieces of meat on a conveyor belt, and within a half hour that it has to sit in the salt. By the end, it goes into the water, dumps into the water. So they created those machines, for a huge plant. And the company was not so interested in us HEB buying, because they have they already
they're set up.
They sell. They have their people, but they're getting bigger, that company. And so we came back and we weren't sure, but we told them.
I remember when you flew. That you said you're going to go on their private jet, and we're like, whoa, and you're like, it was not fun.
well, it was, 8-seater. It was a little fun. But interesting to sit with 8 executives of, or 7 executives of HEB. One is the meat buyer, one is the different people of the company. Wow. With Tracy, and we had to, even there, the airport is so small that we had to drive another hour to get to the plant. So we came back, and my idea was, this was a thought that I said, kosher plants, a lot of the animals not kosher. First of all, parts of the animal are not kosher, and then there's animals that don't end up being kosher. So there's so much that they can't, they don't use. What do they use? What do they do with the not kosher? And HEB would be a good customer for them.
They say it's 40-60, I think. The amount kosher is like 60%. A full 40% are not kosher, like off the bat.
I want to maybe even say at that time I heard 80-20. I'm not sure.
80-20 was kosher or not kosher?
80 not kosher.
Wow. So I've heard that it's more kosher now.
I don't know. I don't know.
Wow. Okay, that's a lot.
Basically, these parts of the animal that you can't eat.
All right. If you count the second half of the animal, then 50% of every animal is not kosher.
Yeah, and then some don't end up kosher.
Right.
If there's any a kosher animal has to be healthy by the standards of the Talmud, which has like 96 types of issues that might have. A hole in the lungs, so they check the lungs, these things that they check inside. Basically, even if it's a normal cow walking around on the farm, you have to check the inside to make sure that it has the potential to live, I think, 2 years or something.
So they basically do an autopsy on the animal after shkita to check if this was an animal that would have, had we let it go, would it have lived this long?
So it's interesting. I always say that people ask if kosher meat is more healthy. Well, in a way, of course, it has the cholesterol stuff. But besides the cholesterol stuff, you're not eating blood, which blood usually carries diseases. You're not eating a cow mad cow disease. You're not eating a cow that was fed bad food that makes it mad, and so on. And the animal is a healthy animal and it's being watched by other off like anything kosher that has sort of an authority that's looking from outside and watching it.
Right, a third party, right.
Third party. So this is one of the health benefits. But that's not what kosher is about. Kosher is not about health, but there's a benefit. Right. The Creator gave us some stuff. So we wanted to make this deal, and HEB was trying to make that deal with the company, and the company was not sure. Finally, like a week later, 2 weeks later, they said, we're coming to San Antonio. I ran over to San Antonio. We sat down. They mostly catered to the East Coast. They said, yeah, let's start doing business. Apparently, they lost a customer for not kosher. So they were happy to work that out.
Find someone else, okay.
And they wanted to only sell the not kosher, and HEB said, no, it's either kosher with the not kosher. So in the end...
This is why you're not naming them specifically.
The ironic thing is that with some parts of the animal that they had to come up with a price right away because they don't sell those things. They don't sell chicken feet in the East Coast. They don't sell the trachea. It's a very dirty part of the animal that they just throw out and they have to get rid of. And here, this HEB is ready to buy that, the non-kosher.
Interesting.
We made the deal, and they were so happy that they sent all the way from Iowa. The truck was coming on their expense, basically. So we bought it as if it's in Iowa. That's how we
oh, wow. No shipping costs.
No shipping costs.
Wow.
So we bought it straight from the manufacturer, and they kept the prices quite low, and we were able to sell HEB was able to sell it for much lower than anywhere in the country almost. In now times it's a little more difficult, but ultimately it's not going through that system. But they have a supply of kosher meat. HEB also changed a little bit the structure. It goes through, so it's. But anyways,
the prices here are very. I remember the prices here were insane compared to New York. They're so low. Even today, it's very low compared to.
It's a miracle, and most of the customers are not necessarily Jewish people. Not necessarily people who keep kosher. They value it and they just come for lunch, and that's the customer thing. Right. With it, there's also, they already have a whole store, and they sell other items that makes it very, very convenient for anyone that wants to keep kosher to be in Austin and have have food.
I remember a couple years ago there was a shortage for some reason. It was a massive shortage of turkeys before Thanksgiving. And maybe it was Thanksgiving that year. It was Hanukkah, Thanksgiving at the same time. I don't remember what it was. But there was I was in the kosher store getting lunch with somebody. And the amount of people that were coming up and inquiring, it was a couple weeks before Thanksgiving, but they were asking about, are the turkeys in yet? When are they going to be in yet? And people that not only I've never seen, but they don't fit like what you would think are people who are part of the kosher eating community. And I was surprised. And there are people who I recognize from around, but a lot of people I didn't recognize at all. And it reminded me that there's a lot of people who, even though now we have, Trader Joe's as kosher options, you can even get in Costco, there's kosher cheese. Once in a while they carry some kosher meat, but they have other options in town that are like kosher meats available. HEB is the main supplier of kosher meat for the city. Right. And lots and lots of people that are just people we would never, you'd be very surprised. If you look at the kosher keeping, traditional community, you'd be wondering if this could sustain a store at that size. But there's a lot of people who, because it's here, have moved into become kosher keeping because of that, which is credit to HEB and credit to you for creating the infrastructure. I like to tell people that the infrastructure of the city, a lot of the Jewish infrastructure you put into place years before it was even viable. The mikvah, the kosher store, things like that, where it wasn't necessarily, but the opportunities came up. You grab them, and then here we are, in 2020 and 2020, and we have all these, all the things available. I wanted to ask you to give us one or two steps. Besides the kosher store, you also do inspections at kosher factories and kosher plants around the area. There's a lot of, there's basically every item that has a kosher symbol on it, it means that there was a mashgiach or a rabbi, usually both, who visited the plant or the factory where that was made. Depending on what it is, it depends on how often the rabbi has to come. And you're not going there to bless the food and kind of give it a sprinkle. You're going to inspect, to check, to make sure that all the ingredients going in are kosher. Is the process kosher? Is everything kosher? And obviously, happens all over the world. Today's supply chain of kosher food. I have a Kuti Tomlinson, my cousin, Mussi's cousin, does inspections for the OU in China. And there are people who do there's hundreds of factories in China who do kosher, or do parts of food, or they do the ingredients that go into food later, like the chemicals and stuff that go into food later. They have to have the array from the first step, whatever's going to go into food later has kosher supervision. So you have rabbis and people are doing that. I know that you do inspections for places here in town and in the area. Can you give us like a story or two of what,
The back end.
Back end, yeah, the behind the scenes, what goes on, and something interesting that ever happens or happened when you're out there.
It's interesting that I go also for other agencies. I myself am doing it locally, but I also go and supervise for others.
It's part of the big umbrella.
Right. Well, it's part of because of the system because you have to have locals. So one of the places I go is to Shiner, and basically it's under the hechsher of a rabbinic organization in Michigan. For some reason, they have some connection, and every half a year, or every third of the year, I drive out to Shiner
Bach,
and all the things in Shiner are kosher. There was one run of something not kosher, but someone alerted to me that it said on it, I think it had either wine. Well, let's get back to the wine and beer, actually.
Right.
Beer in general, just plain beer has no problem. Usually it's made out of the hops. Hops are organically kosher. Barley is kosher. There might be an issue if you have a wine and liquor. You might have an issue with Passover if it's owned by Jewish people and it runs on Passover, so on. It is an issue. But if it's not owned by Jewish people on Passover, then you're good to go as far as if it's 100% beer.
Right.
Nowadays you have so many flavors that they make, and the flavors could be not kosher, could be made. Surprisingly enough, like the red might have blood from a beetle or something. So the rabbinic organizations have their policies, and they make sure we go there, and they have a log, and you look in the log and make sure that the anything that came in was with the approval of the rabbi. So it's a very sophisticated system today with computers and
apps.
And apps, right? I go to a tortilla factory for the kofke. I have a whole app to sign in that I went, and there's a problem. I take a picture of it and I send it to them, and they answer and say, yes, this is fine, this is not fine, and so on. So when it comes to beer, the main issue with beer is that it shouldn't have any wine ingredient. The wine has a separate, was once a sacrificial type of for libations and so on. So there's rules that it has to be very, very carefully, have to have hashgacha just like meat, so on. So it's
extra holy. It's extra holy.
It's extra holy, and then we can't just drink wine or grape juice or any other product. So that's why when it comes to alcohol, we need a little bit of a more of a hashgacha, what we call it. So with Shiner, they had one issue. So I went back to the rabbi. I said, "Wait, this item, this is kosher." They had a special holiday run that wasn't kosher. So if it says on it something like a weird, like maybe it had pork, I don't remember what it was. So yeah,
that one wasn't kosher. Interesting. It
wasn't kosher, but otherwise, all Shiner beer is kosher. I go to it used to be a cookie factory in Lockhart. With a monthly, they have Weller bars, it's called. So basically we go through the ingredients.
I remember going out that was one of our trips. That was our fun trips to go out to one of the factories, because they would usually let us inside as long as, or we would just sit outside in the waiting room, depending on which one.
Not anymore. Today, the
So
factories,
today, no.
they're very restricted from the government.
Interesting.
You have to sign in and you have to,
Oh, really?
oh, yeah, you can't go in. You can
Because those were fun. They used to let us come back and see. As long as we wore like the hairnets, we were fine. We just stand back and like not.
today it's serious.
Ah,
With COVID, even more so.
right, right.
COVID, some of the places make us go do it on Zoom, do it on camera.
Interesting. Okay.
Some are allowed, some are problematic. So you have to, they could lose a license, so to say.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you were saying about the cookie factory, the wellness bars, right? Also, you do Austin East ciders here locally.
Ciders locally, yeah. But I do also I do Austin nuts to make sure that their roasted nuts are all parve and kosher. They closed their store, but they're still doing online, and they do it in the packages in the stores.
And yeah, in HEB, I was going to say.
Yeah.
But the retail side ended, but the wholesale is still there.
By the way, speaking about the kosher store, they started also doing kosher bakery.
At HEB?
At HEB. At first they were not kosher, and they changed. The main issue with kosher breads is that you want to keep, the breads have to be parve. So mainly in a bakery, like Randall's Bakery here on 2222, is also under my supervision.
I was going to ask when that started.
That continued on. I mean, they were the kosher store, by the way. They're Randall's on 2222.
Interesting.
And Mopac was the kosher store. They always had kosher items, and they still have certain things, but they don't have meat anymore. I think they just let it go for the
right.
for HEB. But as far as breads, they had always like one oven that was kosher that they had, and they had the Passover products and so on. So when they made a major renovation, so the difference between them and another store is that they have two ovens, one oven for parve and one oven for dairy. So there, the cookies and cakes are dairy, the breads are parve. In the HEB, you have a third category, which is treif, the not kosher oven, where they want to have the astiago, what is it called, that cheese. It's hard.
Really? Because they want a specific cheese.
They want a specific cheese, which is like the only place that makes it is one place in the world, I think, and that's not kosher, and so they kept not kosher, and so whatever is baked in HEB here on Far West, you have to look at the labels and make sure that it has a stamp, because ultimately some things are not kosher, some things are parve, some things are dairy, and some things are not even made there. They just repackaged.
Right, they brought it from San Antonio, right. By the way, for any Jewish entrepreneurs out there who are looking to open a new business, this cheese making thing, kosher variety of it, we'd have some customers here in Austin.
There's also anyone in general, if anyone wants to make their place kosher, if it's innately kosher, in other words, if you have your unique oven or anything, if we're going to go into a little bit of the kosher, the contaminant, so to say, the contamination between one and another product and another goes through heat. Anytime you make a product and you have another product that you want to do on the same lines, if it's not kosher, you have to kosher it. You have to either with heat or
clean it with a kosher process.
With the kosher process. So it's not simple, but if it's a simple matter, if it's one item that you do that has no animal products, it might be a very easy way to make it kosher, and that symbol will help you a lot. I know. Speaking of which kosher symbols,
right.
For a while I was talking to Tito's Vodka, and I met with them a few times and we spoke, and they were like relaxed about it. No, but they don't know anything about kosher. And I said to them, you are practically kosher, but if you let a company come in and certify it, and there's a small fee for it, you should be able to do it. After a while, I asked them again. They said, yeah, we have the OU. So and then that was very exciting, you know. So okay, vodka is vodka usually, right? Sometimes there is, I think, not domestic vodkas might have. They say that some of them do have milk in it.
Interesting.
So they what's it called? So when I spoke to them about kosher, so like a year or two later, I met someone that met
Tito's.
Tito, and he spoke at a conference here. And the guy says, you know, I am in New York, and in New York, by us in the synagogue, we say l'chaim with your vodka. He says, you know what? Ever since I had that little symbol over there, sales in New York shot up like crazy.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, and this is just vodka, but people are, you know, more observant people want that symbol on it, and especially in the coast. So if you make a product here and it goes to the coast, East Coast or the West Coast, and there's a lot of people who will look for it. Besides that, locally, a lot of people will look for it to be on a higher standard.
Both kosher-wise and health-wise.
And health-wise.
So people look for it, right. So yeah, so just to reiterate, if you are involved in a kosher manufacturer, kosher manufacturing food manufacturing of any sort, and you're looking for a way to expand your market and to make your reach farther and bigger, and also a little more healthy and a little better, reach out to Rabbi Levertov, or you can reach out to me and I'll put you in touch with him. And there's a high chance that what you're making is not very hard to make kosher at all. It's possible that you have is mostly or almost all the way kosher already. It just needs to have a little bit of tweaking to make sure that it's kosher. And once you have it kosher and you get the symbol on it, then it's just a huge opportunity, both, of course, spiritually, it's holier, it's healthier. Obviously that's not why we do it, but it is healthier. And it's a huge opportunity to help people who like to eat kosher, want to eat kosher, to be able to do it. So think about it.
Talk about where I go. There's a place in Round Rock that manufactures for different companies meat. They like repack it, and you know, they're huge. It's a big factory. One part has a special run because it was arranged by they like the owners are from California, and from California they arranged it that there should be one place that they take materials that come in from a pile of materials that's like fake meat, fake burgers or fake ground meat, and they package it here. So they cook it and package it here, and it's like a whole set of everything.
Separate line,
closed up, and they have rules how to. And I go there to make sure that they keep it. You know, so I go there once in a while.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's funny because I was talking to a friend who is involved they invest in different companies, and they invested in a pretzel filling company. They make a pretzel company, it's a pretzel filling company. They bought out a huge part of the equity, and now they're trying to expand this guy into the family business. They want to make it not just pretzel, but pretzel filled with peanut butter. So he was telling me I was talking about kosher, he's telling me about allergies, and how, when you do a pretzel factory, it's not just to have a pretzel factory and then another line next to it that's a pretzel with peanut butter inside. You have to do, basically, it's one box, one structure, but there's a literal wall between the two sides, two separate HVAC systems, two separate entrances, two separate receptionists, basically separate logs to go inside to keep it completely contamination free. And I'm laughing, I'm like, when it comes to kosher, it doesn't pass through the air. Definitely not. And there's other, there's ways. So the idea of having a totally separate line dedicated to something specific as kosher, to kosher food, is not that crazy, especially in today's world where everything's this free, gluten free, and allergy free. I know Khani's allergic to stuff, so we always look out for it. So it's becoming, the world is slowly, I guess, coming to that direction anyways, but it's not that crazy to have something which is kosher or a separate kosher line for something.
Well, there's something I wanted to mention, speaking about allergies and so on. If you really want to know that a product does not have any dairy in it, even though it says dairy free, but it was made on the lines of dairy, you look at the D, O-U-D, so the O-U is the symbol, and the D is that it's dairy. So, for instance, there's a company, silk company, the
Milk.
silk milk, silk yogurts, and all these things that are so to say parve, right? They're not. I mean, not parve. They're dairy free.
Right.
But look carefully, it doesn't say it even, but the symbol will say D. It gives you the hint that it was made at least on on kosher standards that is dairy.
Right.
It's another secret for the even for the non-observant people who don't want to know about kosher, but they could know it helps out for them.
The lactose stuff, right? Lactose things. That's cool. So just in short, from a spiritual perspective, what is the benefit of eating kosher food?
Well, just like all the mitzvot, all the commandments that God gave us is to make us more in tune or connect to Him in a certain way. He wrote the Torah. God gave us like the plan for the world and how to connect and how to serve Him. So it's a spiritual separateness that we separate from things that are not, on one hand, it's a little bit like, I spoke about animals of prey. All animals that prey mostly are not kosher. Besides other types of things that are, so it's a way of connecting with our source, and it's a matter. It's not just in our action that we do something good, we do something not so good, or so that doesn't. It's not so internal. By us, it's like it becomes our flesh and blood. It becomes our body. Our whole body becomes part of what we eat. So you are what you eat. So if you eat something that's not kosher, so the influences might have also that you're going to be a person of prey. You're more refined, as we call it, edel. That when you eat kosher, that's the benefit. And then there's the spiritual benefits of God doing what God's diet, basically. To conform to His mitzvah. Plus, there's other mitzvahs that are connected with them, making the blessing before we eat and after we eat. So there is a blessing. You were saying the blessed food. Yes, we bless it. It's not like other religions.
Right. Not at the store. Not at the factory.
Not in the factory. But let's say when it comes to challah, let's say we do separate a piece, and we give it to God. If you are in Israel, there's separations of fruit and vegetables that we have to give. We give away, and make a blessing. So that's sort of the basics of kosher.
So anyone who's interested in learning more about kosher, feel free to reach out to myself or the senior Rabbi Levertov, or go on chabad.org/kosher. There's a lot of information there. There's videos. You can just search kosher and a lot of stuff comes up. Chabad.org is a great resource in general, and in particular for kosher stuff. It has kosher videos of kosher foods, etc., etc. Thank you, Ta, for joining us today.
Thank you.
We are excited, and if you're in Austin, I noticed on Facebook people commented that there's also Trader Joe's has a lot of kosher options. That is true. Trader Joe's has a lot of stuff, a lot of Israeli stuff. For some reason, Trader Joe's has really, unlike other stores that are organic and very healthy, Trader Joe's is extremely committed towards expanding their kosher lines, both regular kosher and also Pas Yisrael and Chalav Yisrael, which are higher standards within kosher itself. They're extremely committed, and if you go to Trader Joe's, you can actually request from them a kosher list. They'll give you a list. They'll tell you all the products in the store that are kosher. So that's another great resource for kosher.
We also have a line of wine. They have I think even they have a list of the kosher wines.
Kosher wines also. Kosher wines as well, yes. So Trader Joe's Specs has a lot of kosher wine. There are, and of course, the liquor we mentioned earlier, there's a lot of different types of liquors that are kosher or not kosher. There are CRC, Star K have liquor lists online. Recommended, not recommended, high standard, low standard. You can have some fun with that. But there's a huge amount of resources for kosher. In Austin in particular, there's a lot of places you can buy kosher. Like I said, HEB, Randall's, Trader Joe's. And of course, you can have stuff shipped in online. Most of the stuff in your store, the grocery store, they say that 60% of the stuff in the store has a kosher symbol on it. So have fun exploring. Have fun koshering. Enjoy. And again, thank you, Ta. It was wonderful.
Yeah, it was a wonderful day.